Another week and another potential flip candidate for the Florida Gators here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. I am Brandon Olsen. Joining me is Brian Smith, Locked On's recruiting insider and the host of Locked On Seminoles, which I'm sure so many of you love. I'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. And Brian, we're going to start by kind of meshing our two shows together here, as well as you being the recruiting insider with Tramell Jones, quarterback who visited Florida on Tuesday. What's your opinion of Tramell Jones' film?
Well, I've seen him live more times than I can count. From 7-on-7, and I was just with him on Sunday at the Elite 11 event. This is a kid that has a very strong arm, throws a really nice tight spiral, compact delivery. He's been at 6 Points training in Jacksonville. It's one of the elite quarterback training facilities around the country, and they even train MLB pitchers like from the New York Yankees, so obviously they have some clout. And he's more advanced than most kids that come out of Florida. Florida's always been a horrible quarterback state. Tramell kind of goes against that. And he's just punched his ticket to the Elite 11 finals. Rollouts, etc. He could make the throws, but he's best from the pocket. Just needs to work a little bit on footwork, not being as antsy as sometimes he gets. But when he lets it rip, man, he's very accurate, and he's got the right demeanor and mentality. So he can be a Power 4 starter, no problem.
If I'm not mistaken, 6 Points is Denny Thompson, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So also trained Anthony Richardson for Florida Gators fans.
That's correct.
To know about that one as well. And still presently training Anthony Richardson. Just want to point that one out too. It wasn't just a high school thing, still going through the NFL. But how do you view Tramell Jones as a potential flip for Florida? Because he is a Jacksonville kid. When he committed to Florida State last year, it was April 1st, 2023, before Florida ever extended an offer to him, before Billy Napier's coaching staff ever gave him an offer. He's taken visits to both schools, with this past week being his first visit to Florida in 2024. So just how does Florida even approach this battle?
You just chip away. Again, I was with him this past weekend, and I've known him since 8th grade. So I know him pretty well. I talked with his father quite a bit, Tramell Jones Sr. And, I mean, they've been to Florida State, in his own dad's words, more times you can count. But, I'm guessing they're just making sure they keep their options open. I would say it's unlikely that he flips, but at the same time, you know what? It's Jacksonville. That's a big, big home for Florida fans, Florida alums. I'm sure they see people saying go play for the Gators and stuff just as much as they see go play for the Noles. That city is very mixed. A lot of Georgia fans there too. So it's really hard to say like who's pulling in the most, but he seems pretty locked into Florida State to me. But if you're taking visits, there's a chance.
Yeah, I'm also glad that you specified that he's junior, because 24/7 has him listed as Tramell Jones Jr. On 3 has him listed as Tramell Jones the third. So I'm very happy that you specified that one.
Because maybe there's something I missed. I don't know, but that's what I got.
They found another one, and they just added him to the hierarchy there.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
But I mean, for Florida, number 1 quarterback in the class in 2024, DJ Leeway, is a Florida Gator. If you're any quarterback in the 2025 class, how does that play into your eventual decision? Whether we're talking about Ryan Montgomery or any other quarterback that's been here, how does that play into the eventual decision, which obviously is also relevant for any school, including Florida State, who brought in one of the top, we'll say, 10 quarterbacks in the country. But Florida has the top quarterback from 2024.
I think it's unique because there's two ways you can look at this. If you're a kid that is just impatient as all get out, and a lot of them are, DJ is a deterrent because realistically, you're not going to just walk in and beat him out. You're not. He's a year ahead of you, and he's as physically gifted as you're going to get. However, the backside to that is high percentage chance that DJ is a 3-and-out kid, kind of like Anthony Richardson. So when he leaves, you would be a junior starter. So that's not all bad. And you get normal time to train, unlike what DJ's probably going to get. He's going to get thrown into the fire a little bit this year and probably be the most likely starter in 2025. So I guess it just depends on the person. I wish more young men understood that quarterback is a lifelong learning skill. Most don't even comprehend that terminology in general, regardless of what it's applied to, but it takes forever. Be careful for what one wishes. If you need any proof of that, go look at whatever school you want and see a freshman inserted in the starting lineup. At Florida, it could be New Mexico State, it could be Cal, it does not matter. Quarterbacks playing as freshmen stink. Sophomores are usually pretty bad too. I kind of have a golden rule, and it's the statistics like CFB stats and every Pro Football Focus back this up. If you haven't thrown 400 or 500 passes going into that next season, you're probably not ready yet. And so in other words, you're going to fail at some point, but it's better if you're bigger, faster, stronger, and you know the system better. So I'm guessing that it's going to be hard for Florida to get somebody because Lagway, I know you said top 10. You're being really conservative with that. I just call it like I see it. I've been around DJ. I saw his film. His dad used to send me high school like video from his practices. That's top 5 quarterback in the last class, pretty conservatively, in my opinion. I can't imagine it's going to be easy for Billy and them to recruit him. And then, of course, they're on the hot seat anyway. It's about as tough a sell as it gets.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a fun time to try to add a quarterback when it's
probably not.
Like with DJ, you could sell playing time. You could be like, hey, like worst case, you sit behind Graham for a year and then you're in.
That's an easy sell. That's like the perfect, I might play a little bit, but I'll get my feet wet, then I'm the starter. Most kids will be down with that.
Yeah, it's not a great time to be recruiting a quarterback if you're, again, any team that's taken in any of the top quarterbacks from the 2024 cycle. I do have to ask, do you think that Tramell Jones is the kind of kid that you can take him and say, let's say, regardless of whether or not DJ Lagway is here, just as a school, do you think he's the kind of kid where you can take him and say, he's our QB1 in the class, or are you looking to pair him with someone else and kind of compete there?
Unless Billy's going to change his offense, just looking at this open-endedly, and again, I've known Tramell Jones Jr. since he was in 8th grade. He's a good fit. He could run play action. He has way past advanced for his age mechanics on play action moves, bootlegs, handoffs, all the little stuff that you have to do at the college level and do it better to keep defenses off guard. He's been prepared. Again, he's been at 6 points. He's played at a good program in Mandarin High School at Jacksonville. I saw him as a freshman just light up a team. I was at a game and like he had 200 yards passing in the first half against a team that has Division I talent. I'm like, okay, he's little, but once he was like 5'9", 5'10" at the time. But I'm like, this kid understands football. Like he's advanced. He's going to go play somewhere. I didn't know he'd be this good. He's about 6'1.5", 205 or something like that now. But yeah, I think he could fit into Billy's scheme well because they want to run play action. They want to run power football off of it. And Tramell can run if needed. He can do RPO. If you want him to be the feature runner, he's not that guy, but he can run quite a bit. He's not a guy that's going to move to slot receiver if quarterback doesn't work out, but he's a good athlete. So he has versatility on his side too. So any offense could probably use him.
And we're going to keep talking about offensive flip candidates, but we're going to move off of Florida State from this one. But first, a quick word from FanDuel. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball is in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Also, yesterday was Dinger Tuesday, which is you bet $25 on a player to hit a home run. And if it doesn't hit, you get $5 for every home run that is hit in that game. And if it does hit, still get $5 for every home run that's hit in that game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. It's $150 whether you win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. And what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Joining me is Brian Smith, Locked On's recruiting insider. And we're sticking with a flip candidate, but we're moving off Florida State. We're going to Oregon this time. What is your opinion of wide receiver Dallas Wilson?
He is an NFL player in waiting. 6'3", 200, 205, something like that. Last summer at the Future 50 event held at IMG Academy, he was dominant against guys that are offered by all the schools that can get the elite corners. Florida, Florida State, LSU, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Michigan. He had numerous moments where he beat guys that have a chance to get paid too. And his frame is a big part of it. He can separate at the line of scrimmage just because he overpowers guys. Now he gets to college, it'll change a little bit, but after a year or so in college, he'll be back to that again. Can't teach the frame, has a lot of length. And for his height, he's pretty choppy. He can get down low and he can change direction. He's not a 5'9" kid that can do that, but it's pretty good. I mean, you add it with his size and his ability to take the ball away in contested catch moments, Dallas is really good. He also plays at Tech High School in Tampa. It's a program that's got a good receiver coach. They've always had good players there, and they go against top competition. So he'll walk into college as a guy that's going to be a little more ready than most people.
Yeah, I feel like a big I feel like he says the right thing. So I was reading an interview of him where he was just like, "Oh yeah, like one of my favorite things to do is come down and block." And I feel like if you're saying that for a receiver, then you know what coaches want to hear at the next level. It's just like
100%.
Yeah, I feel like that's a great selling point there. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago with other commits, but with Dallas Wilson committed to Oregon, how hard is it for a program like Oregon to maintain the commitment of a player like Dallas Wilson, who highly sought after in the state of Florida? So we know he's a Florida kid, which means a little fickle there. But how hard is it to maintain that commitment across the country through signing day when he committed so early in the process too?
This one is complex because I even told somebody that I didn't think he'd stick, and then he'd taken enough trips to like Miami. I thought that's where he would go. But I've got on good authority from somebody that knows like the Miami staff that like they think it's going to be hard to flip him away from Oregon. He did like Oregon growing up. He's a different kid. He might want something different. And a lot of the kids in the state of Florida just like Oregon because of the uniforms. I know people hate hearing that, but that stuff matters to them. Your opinion as a fan, no offense, irrelevant. And mine as well, because I think that's goofy, but whatever. I just know that he's taken trips. He's visited Miami multiple times. He's going to visit Florida State multiple times. And I'm going to guess that there's going to be some out-of-state schools too. I'm sure Ohio State or Georgia or Tennessee or whatever. Before all said and done, he'll visit 4 or 5 schools. If it's Oregon, it's Oregon. But man, that is long. Like where he's from to Oregon, like culturally, is the difference between here and Beirut in a lot of ways. Like it's just a different world altogether. So if he's the guy that wants something totally different, more power to him. But yeah, that doesn't work out good. Usually Oregon needs to get the commitment later, so they're not getting hammered, negative recruiting by all the other schools as a rule. But Dallas really likes Oregon, so we'll see.
Yeah, I do also have to ask, just with the recruiting aspect of that, just for any player, I feel like, because you mentioned negative recruiting, like there's so many opportunities for these in-state schools, whichever in-state school it is that's recruiting him, to just go, yeah, we can just come up for an unofficial. Don't worry, no pressure. And just I feel like it's like you can just chip away for so long now with that commitment coming so early.
You said it. If he'd have committed in August, that's one thing. But he committed last year. Like it was just like, holy crap. Well, Oregon, what? And then I found out he was an Oregon fan. I'm like, okay, I get it. And then they had their offense went bananas last year. That kind of helped too. So they didn't have a guy like him though, with that size and his skill set. I'm sure they're telling him, hey, you can be the next dominant guy, but at 6'3", we can do some more things with you. Cause that's what I'd tell him. I mean, he'll take the ball off your head. He'll run by you. He can take a slant and then power past you and break a tackle and score. He can do all of those things. So I'm sure Oregon's laying it on thick too, but he can still take a trip from where he lives to be in Gainesville is like right on the dot, 2 hours. It's not very hard. So it shouldn't be surprising that he's visiting Florida. I'm curious to see what visits, I don't care what his schedule is now, what visits he actually takes in May and June, because it'll probably change around. Most kids do. And if he takes more than one trip in state for OVs, that would still give me some pause on whether or not he'd eventually sign with the Oregon Ducks.
Yeah, if I'm Oregon, I'm just showing him Troy Franklin's film from last year and be like, hey,
I
this
would.
second, third round pick. Just saying, he was with us. Why not be that next guy? Easy selling point there. But Dallas Wilson did take an unofficial to Florida this week. And as it presently stands, I know you said you don't care about the dates because things are probably going to change at some point. Florida has the first official visit scheduled with Dallas Wilson on June 14th. Oregon's currently scheduled for June 21st. How do you see Florida trying to flip Dallas from Oregon? And also, if you're talking about making this potential flip or trying to make this flip, do you think it's better for Florida to have the first OV before Oregon, or do you think it'd be better if they had it scheduled for after?
There's arguments for both, and it depends. Like, I'm not sure it's going to matter a ton, but like he knows Florida enough. It's not as big a deal. If he hadn't been there much, I'd want the last visit. But he's been to Gainesville, and he's going to he'll end up going there again. I'd be surprised if it's going to have a whole lot of impact because he likes the school and it's State U. It's 2 hours away. I think the more important factor is how well does he gel with the other players on campus, the recruits and the coaches on the OV, because unofficials are great. Official visits, they can do a lot more. And you meet with the academic advisors and it's more specific about what you're going to do. It's 48 straight hours, Gators, 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 or Ducks, Ducks, Ducks. And you find out really what you want. Unofficial is more hanging out. You get to see Billy or you get to see whatever coach at any school, but it's not the same. So I wouldn't put a lot of stock on it for Florida State. It's more important for Oregon because you're not going to go visit Oregon, but he's been there like once or twice. He'll visit Florida more times than he does Oregon. So their OB has to be spot on. But Florida, I'm sure, is just going to put on the heat, and they'll try to get him to come back again even after he takes the OV because it's still early enough. You can't sign until December. So that's an advantage for the Gators as well.
Yeah, I'd imagine the plan is get him to a practice or two, just be like, hey, DJ Lively, just throw a few bombs and just be like, oh, you see that? You see that? Wow, crazy. And that'll be a big selling point for him there. We're going to flip to the defensive side of the ball to wrap up today's show. But first, we're going to get a quick word from Game Time. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you get to first pitch. And I took advantage of that about 2 weeks ago now to watch opening day for the Mets at Citi Field. It was a fantastic experience, nice little 52 degrees. I got to see the Mets get one hit by the Milwaukee Brewers. It was a home run, but one hit, and it was just games that I use Game Time. They just suck. I watched Florida lose to Arkansas. I watched the Mets get one hit by the Brewers. It's really fun. I'm enjoying the app. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. And Brian Smith, Locked On's recruiting insider, here with me. And Taven Wallace is a guy that I don't think we've talked about him together. I know that I mentioned him, I think it was last week on the show, and then now we have to talk about him. What's your opinion of his film?
It's probably about as high a praise as he get. And I like the big county schools in Georgia. And just as a background for those that don't know, most probably do if they're watching this show, but Central and South Georgia is just loaded with these schools that are massive. It's basically because of football, like one or two schools in the entire county. And I'm not exaggerating. There are schools literally like Colquitt is the only school in that county. So, but it's because of football. They want numbers. And it is life or death. He's at one of those programs. And he's a kid that they utilize in a bazillion different ways. I love what they do, creepers and all that stuff. And he's good in space. He's a blitzer. He's a guy that takes great angles to the football when he's trying to bring down a shifty running back, playing against pretty good competition. He's all the things you want. So as a comparison, and it's completely unfair, but I'm going to do it anyway. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah with the Cleveland Browns had 101 tackles, 3.5 sacks, and 2 picks last year. That's my comparison. He's good. So this young man is too. He's going to be an early impact guy, I think, in any defense that he goes to because his foot speed and his ability to just play special teams immediately. Zero chance he's not playing special teams right off the bat. It's Georgia, Florida State, Florida, whatever. That kid can run. And now you just got to kind of figure out. I've been trying to narrow it, but they're probably going to have to try him at different spots. Like he could play will, but in the hardest spot physically to play in college football now is by a landslide. It's the nickel spot because you don't know who's going to line up in front of you. Against a run-heavy team or a team that likes to play tight end in the slot, he could be that guy. Might even be able to cover a little bit with running backs and stuff, but he is a freaky athlete.
Yeah, I was watching his film this morning before we like when I was prepping for this, and he was playing off-ball linebacker. He was lining up in the slot. He was playing off the edge, and the offenses he was going against too were like they had 4 wide out there, and then he was going up against the wishbone and the wing tee, and I was just like,
it's everything.
What is going on over here? But he was everywhere on these, and like his athleticism for me just really popped off, and I was like, I feel like being from where he's generally from, for you to stand out athletically is huge. And also one of the first, he might be like the first linebacker I've ever watched, which wasn't many outside of actual commits, that on his tape has him playing special teams, legitimately just tracking someone down.
What's that tell you about his mentality?
Yeah, I was like, he tracked the kid down across the field and made the tackle at on the team's own 1 yard line. I was just like, this kid is an athletic freak. Like I need him in Gainesville. I just want to throw that one out there. Billy, Ron Roberts, Austin Armstrong, get me Taven Wallace. Please just get him in Gainesville. I don't ask for much. I just want.
I just need this top 50 player. No big deal. He has offers from everybody. Don't take it seriously, but get him to Florida. Okay, I got you.
Just saying that's my expectation here. But also, I mean, I feel like this recruitment still feels pretty open. I don't want to say wide open because he's kind of narrowed it down to like 12-ish, but he had the Florida unofficial this week. He currently has official visits scheduled with Arkansas, Georgia, Florida State, and South Carolina. I'd imagine Kentucky gets a visit because his brother Taven Wallace just left Kentucky and is currently in the NFL draft class. So I'd imagine they're going to get an official. And I would imagine Florida's at least going to try to set up one, and they could also use a selling point for Taven Wallace of you could be our linebacker in this class. You know, we took 1 2 years ago, we took 2 this past year, as well as 2 years ago we took 2 from the transfer portal. You could be our guy this year. That's kind of headline in the class there. But how do you feel about this recruitment to this point?
It's wild because he has everybody after him. I wouldn't touch a prediction on him even if he told me where he was leaning, because it's a long way to go. And again, the spot that he can play is rarefied air. I'm not saying he's a corner, but he has the athleticism to play in space against bigger or smaller players. There is no rare skill. So, like, I'm sure there's going to be some people try to drop some bags for him, among other things. Let's be honest.
I'm willing to drop a bag for him.
Brandon Olsen will pay you to be a Gator.
I'll take out a loan right now.
In all seriousness, like his recruitment being where he's from, he could go a lot of different directions. I mean, Georgia's obviously going to recruit him, an in-state kid, but Florida State does really well in that area. It wouldn't surprise me if, like, Arkansas visit was a little random, but like he's looking at a really wide variety of schools. Wouldn't touch it. Florida's got as good a shot as anybody. They've always recruited Georgia. Like, they got some kids UGA wanted in the last couple of years in their backyard, in Florida, other places. So we'll see. I'm curious about it because I think he's the kind of guy that can be the leader of your defense, even at the Southeastern Conference level. He's a special football player.
Yeah, you mentioned him. You compared it to Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I remember a couple of years ago, that was my second year covering the draft, I think. And the big discourse around Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was, do you play him at linebacker, safety, or slot? And if you have that discussion around you, you're a hell of a football player. Just like if you even have to consider it, just take them and figure it out somewhere along the way. So I'm very excited to see Taven Wallace where he winds up. Hopefully a Florida Gator. But thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, this was Brian Smith, Locked On's recruiting insider. Catch him every week on Locked On Gators. Catch him every day, really, throughout the Locked On College Network and on Locked On Seminoles. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants Country and NFL 33, and I'll see you all next time.